Everybody recognises culture-led regeneration is the way forward. I'm not here to justify whether you support culture or not. That was 20 years ago. I'm over it.
Yes.
It's working.
Yeah.
Now we have to have the argument that culture is civic infrastructure. That's why we have to live healthier lives and happier lives. And again, it's a dirty word sometimes, but we're allowed to have fun and there's joy and entertainment in this. Now we can do it with heart and focus, but make sure it is designed with communities, not on them.
Culture is the social infrastructure. Yeah. It's the emotional infrastructure. It's what makes us human.
Yeah.
We have to bring back joy. And like you said, we live in very dark times now. We're in a loneliness epidemic. Can you imagine? The UK is quite a densely populated country and we're in the longest epidemic, so culture will save us.
Well, it already has. So there's been, unfortunately, world wars, the pandemic. So the consistent thing there that has brought people together and give us like solace, up in even the pandemic, is art and culture. That didn't disappear. And technology is evolving so fast around us. So when all that's done, what are we all going to be doing? Hopefully, it'll be enjoying theatre, music, food, and the definition of culture is whatever we want it to be now. I'm not going to be trying to make the case for culture anymore. Like even my parents can't be like, David, you're not sure you want to go and get a proper job? I think I'm doing all right.
Hello. Welcome to Talking Place, the podcast bringing placemakers and storytellers together to talk about place. I'm your host, Tanisha Raffiuddin. I am the founder of Concept Culture, a creative agency in London, passionate about creating purposeful brands and telling powerful stories. This episode was recorded live at the Bradford Showcase at UKREiiF 2026 in Leeds. Shout out to our hosts, P+HS Architects, for their generous hospitality. Culture has always been Bradford's quiet superpower. Long before the City of Culture title arrived, this district was building something extraordinary. A creative identity rooted in its communities, its heritage, and its people. The question now is how you take a landmark year and turn it into something that genuinely lasts. In this episode, I'm in conversation with two people who understand Bradford's cultural identity from the inside. Zulfikar Karim is the founder of the World Curry Festival, a man who has spent nearly 2 decades using food as a catalyst for community, diplomacy, and civic pride, and who has been central to Bradford's cultural story long before 2025 put it in the national spotlight. And David Watson is Bradford Council's new Assistant Director for Culture, tasked with embedding that cultural energy into the city's long-term growth plan. This is a conversation about legacy, identity, and what it means to build a city that genuinely reflects the people who live in it. All right, let's talk place.
Welcome to the Talking Place podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
So this podcast is the final podcast in this miniseries, and we're going to be talking about Bradford's year as City of Culture, the lead up, the actual year, and the legacy. But before we get into it, I'd love for our audience to get to know both of you. Please introduce yourselves.
So my friends know me as Zulfikar Karim, Bradford born and bred. Spent the last 25 years in culture and tourism, and I suppose last year, 2025, was the highlight and pinnacle of 30 years of work in that sector. And I'm 5th generation South Asian, born and bred in Bradford. So yeah, nowhere else I would like to be apart from Bradford.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm David Watson. I am not born and bred in Bradford yet, but I've been here 5 weeks and I feel like I'm already being consumed by the love and the food, which my stomach, you can't see it, but it's quite bloated. But I am the new Assistant Director of Culture, Policy and Events for Bradford Council. And part of my role is about what happens next in this big journey. But my background is I trained as a dancer originally, so I've been a performer and a choreographer. And now I'm a cultural leader. But I've done a City of Culture before. I've done Olympics, all sorts of stuff. So I'm quite aware of the highs and lows and the opportunities as we start moving forward, what we need to look out for and where the opportunities to take.
Go back in time. Well, you were definitely a part of that journey. What was the build-up like?
The ambition for Bradford to become City of Culture has actually been around for almost 2 decades. The dream started back in the noughties when we bid to become the European City of Culture. That was in the early noughties. Unfortunately, we lost it to Liverpool that year for 2008. So we have unfinished business.
That's where I currently live.
I can feel the
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm here now, aren't I? That's the difference.
You're friends now. Yeah.
So the journey has been a long journey, and it's been very transformational, where culture was just an idea 25 years ago. And I suppose culture was about a museum and an art gallery. And the journey in that 25 years to what we've just delivered this year is totally unrecognisable. Totally unrecognisable, yeah.
Wow. So you win the bid. What happened next?
Panic. Panic. Very, very different, obviously, because we are not part of the European Union, and this is not the European bid where there was a lot of money attached to it.
Right.
Where we started off with a very small pot. Compared with 20 years ago when the money just flowed where these Capital of Culture European bids went. So there was a huge journey on how do we make this happen, the scale of the ambition, and where's the money going to come from. And to be perfectly honest with you, when we started, there was probably a couple of £1 million in the kitty, and a couple of £1 million doesn't go far. And to see that these guys ended up with £50 million plus programme was really unbelievable. I think a lot of people probably did not feel as confident that Bradford was going to pull this off. But I think we've proved everybody wrong. So I was that much part of what was going on, but it's the team that came into the fold, the council, the vision behind them, and also the mayor's office. So it was really a collective partnership at regional level, but then obviously funding, you need everybody together, and we're absolutely blown over by the amount of attention that Bradford got as a Bradfordian. To see Heritage England, to see National Lottery, to see BBC and all these amazing brands actually landing in Bradford and saying, we're here, we're going to be part of this journey, was really beyond our wildest dreams.
Amazing. So can you tell us what Bradford City of Culture set out to do and how that evolved through delivery?
I think throughout what we set out to do, it was an evolution. And what has evolved, and I think we spoke about this earlier, was about our young population. And I don't think people see Bradford in that way. I think the lens that the world sees Bradford is very different to how Bradford sees itself. It's a very young city and it's very dynamic, but what it is, for me, it's a very confident city. And I remember a strapline many years ago, part of a campaign, was O ye of little faith. Okay, and I do feel that people outside Bradford have always not Bradford. And so we started at a very low point. So in some cases it's very good because you'll say, we will show you. And I think we did.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of kind of commonality in lots of cities, whether that's in the UK or around Europe, that go for these kind of opportunities to be a host city.
Yes.
And a lot of it is about people's perception of a place where they think something is or how it is. Part of it is change in perception.
Yes.
We need to be in control of the stories that we tell, not what the media puts out there, for what, better or worse, what that is. But equally, there's more layers to Bradford than what you could find on the internet in 3 seconds. It's about communities that are together. It's about how that we work as a community to lift each other up, and there's ingenuity there. And the other commonality, a lot of these places, they're grafters, they pull the sleeves up, they don't make fuss. I think that it's changed now because clearly the North is really there at the forefront of government conversation.
Yes.
But the commonality there is a bit of the underdog, We just get on with it. We're a bit scrappy. We can do it. So there's quite a similarity, and if you look across the different ones, they are quite similar. I think there's a lot of creativity behind these places too.
Yes.
And actually, because of the London-centric issue that we've experienced for a very long time, some people go, we're going to have this market and we're going to show people that we can not only produce and nurture local talent, but we can attract world-class talent to our locations. And it's the same with the showcase in Hockney. Yes, it was in Bradford, but actually on the global stage. But equally, that young person around the corner that wants to aspire to be an artist has the potential to go out there. So these things are not just about putting on a party, they are. As much as we all don't want to talk about it, they are a political statement. They are talking about people power. And I was doing a talk earlier on. Culture is powered by people. Buildings are powered by people, which equals community. So City of Cultures really do these things. Everyone's always skeptical about whether you can pull it off. As someone that has been in a team delivering a City of Culture and other things, I know the team would have been stressing their eyeballs out up until the day of doing the opening.
Yeah.
Because you honestly don't get a sense if anyone's going to turn up. And Shanaz earlier on was talking about the opening in the freezing temperatures, doing the rehearsal and going, no one's coming. 10 minutes later, 24,000 people descended in town. So it's one of those moments where you also have to prove to the city you can pull it off. And then once you've got them at the beginning of the year, you've got them all year round. And obviously something we'll come on to is about how do you keep that momentum is what legacy truly is.
Yes.
But it is a hard journey to get there. The team are probably still exhausted from last year. It's interesting, I've been visiting the offices of the culture company, trying to be supportive and say, hi, I'm kind of new. And they're like, yeah, it's much calmer. And I'm like, the energy I'm getting from you lot, it's still up here because their normal has been even more energetic. So it is quite an endurance to do these City of Cultures, very long hours. But importantly, the team is there to enable delivery, but actually it's a huge network of partnerships with local businesses, the political leadership, different communities. There's a lot of listening, a lot of conversations. And it's already been said, like some of it is experimental. Some of it doesn't work, and that's okay. Art and culture is not perfection. It is meant to be the kind of perfect testbed for ideas and do they translate. But ultimately, if you do it with kind of heart and authenticity and remembering it's about storytelling, telling people stories, the rest doesn't kind of matter. I think people want to see the ambition and they want to show off what we can do and we're not afraid to take risk. But by the end of the year, everyone does need to go on a great holiday. But the passion is still there, but it is quite a hard year to deliver. And I would say that for anyone that wasn't directly in the delivery team, I'm sure if we went out and started speaking to people that are independent artists, small businesses trying to capture the opportunity, they'd say it's quite a hard year. They're tired, they're not quite sure what was going on. So yeah, it's quite an experience to go through.
So let's talk about lessons learned, building on what you just said. What would be some of the highs and lows you'd want to share? And perhaps what's your message to the next City of Culture?
Well, that's a really good one. I was in a session this morning that I was doing with Shanaz, creative director of Culture Company, and one of the bidding cities that are shortlisted were in the room. So every now and again, we kept looking at them going, you just need to slow it down. I think for me, there's no denying that pace does triple, quadruple. It has to happen that way in order to maximize the opportunity. So normally when you're announced as the winner, you're probably going to hit Christmas and you've got a week to wake up and then you've got to go for it. So they have to mobilize a company and build that very quickly. I'm sure, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Culture Company because I wasn't part of it here, but I can imagine they would say, actually pace yourselves is one of the big learnings. Don't try and nail every detail because you need to live in the moment too. So focus on the big bits that you want to do at the start, but leave room for opportunity and trial and change. Feed yourself, right? Because you forget to eat. But also, I think the thing that Bradford did very differently to others is that it did also include the idea that it was more than a city location. So the district, that takes a lot more commitment. So if you want to go beyond, I suppose, the focal point of a town or city, you need more capacity to be able to do that engagement before you start making. So I know that's quite a big part of why Bradford is very different, that not only was it city centre, but across the district. And I genuinely think that that's something if people want to go beyond kind of the moment, you really need to like think about, because it's not the same as delivering a city-centric kind of idea. And I know that's definitely one of the successes of Bradford's iteration of City of Culture, the breadth of where it has reached. And also, don't be afraid to be loud. It's quite interesting. People are often very confident, quietly confident. But when you start talking about football, rugby, cricket, we're all very passionate. And the idea with culture is just translate a bit of that fight and passion when it comes to culture and shout about it. So it's there, but we've got to give permission to do it. People want to listen. Look at all the people that, over 3 million people engaged last year, thousands of businesses partnered, 41 plus million additional money was raised. You have to have confidence. You've got to put it out there and trust that there is something you have to offer. So there's the short list or long list now. So it's maybe 10 places that are currently going through this process, thinking about what they could learn, what they could do, how they mobilise. The truth is you have a outline plan. The moment you win, it's a different ball game. You just have to go for it. And you need to do this true partnership with the council and business in order to make it work. That is another thing that I'd say all of them have in common. There is trust, there is belief. The small group that started this bid truly believed in Bradford, or maybe before Bradfordians believed in themselves that they could deliver it. That's all it takes, is a small catalyst to get there. So it's going to be an interesting ride for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, legacy for me now is slightly different because this is now, the year has come and gone.
Yep.
We've spent the money.
Yeah.
Okay. And now we've got to recoup that. We've got to bring in other forms of value that are going to really translate into something meaningful. And we're here at UKREiiF,
Yes.
talking about culture. Okay, and there's a place for that. And that place is that culture is a catalyst. It's a catalyst for people wanting to invest. It's a catalyst for people wanting to come and work here and be part of that fabric and be part of that cultural community. But I think culture is not in isolation. It's not either or. It's a part of the well-being of a district. And I think we need to consider that, and we need to be serious about that. And I know the team at Bradford are. That's why they're here. And that's why they've been now here for the last 3 years, because they see that culture is an integral part of where Bradford wants to go in its regeneration and how it wants to be seen by the rest of the world. And what will Bradford look like by the year 2050? I think culture's got to be just embedded in to everyday life, and we don't have to go out there and win an accolade for City of Culture. It just happens to be that the work now that David, I'm really looking forward to seeing what David's going to bring to what has already been developed and the groundwork that's already been created. And this has got to be very much about how we design the place. And I think this is a great starting point for us.
Yeah. So, like you said, we're at UKREiiF, and Bradford's growth plan is called Built Different, and culture is embedded in the growth plan. But what does it actually mean when culture goes up against infrastructure or housing development, and you're all fighting for the same budget? Who wins?
Well, actually, it's not against it. It's number one. Culture is.
Oh.
There's number one pillar.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful. I didn't put that in there before I got the job. It was already there.
Yeah.
But I insist I'm going to maximise it. But on a serious note, the reason why it is there is because the way that we regenerate place and give sense of pride is no longer you just chuck a building up. What's at the end of the train station we're building, and culture is going to be that driver for regeneration. And we've had a great few years of demonstrating that, the transformation that's happened already in parts of Bradford and the district. But what that enables is this idea that it's people-led. The need, what do they want? We're going to have City Village and lots of other places. But do we want buildings with no sense of community in them or no public art? So for me, that's a great opportunity we can use. But equally, we can go into health and education and skills and jobs and opportunities. And our creative economy is what is going to get us growing. You know, I'm afraid to say it, you know, we're not going to build a new financial capital because that's just not the way it works anymore. It also is digitized. So actually we want this more human connection, this thing about that binds us together. The world's a weird place right now, right? But actually culturally and that sense of community is where it'll come from. But developers, we're here at UKREiiF has already been said, they also want to invest in a place that they know they can attract the footfall, that it will be remain. We don't want this in-transit living, but a real sense of what is going on. So it is the number one pillar, not anything else. But the reason why that is because everybody recognises culture-led regeneration is the way forward. It will have challenges. There are money, things we need to overcome. But actually, when I'm looking around at other funding, they're not just going, here's 50 million to build a building. They want you to have a cultural program. They want you to have a community cohesion program. Communities designing the buildings and the spaces they live and work and play in. So it is a very different world to 20 years ago when we were trying to fight for culture. And in my talk this morning as well, I'm not here to justify whether you support culture or not. That was 20 years ago. I'm over it.
Yes.
It's working.
Yeah.
Now we have to have the argument that culture is civic infrastructure. That's what it is. That's what binds us. That's why we live healthier lives and happier lives. And again, they're dirty words sometimes, but we're allowed to have fun and there's joy and entertainment in this. So I think it's a real good driver for some of those things that maybe we all intrinsically feel, but maybe haven't been put there because we need to quickly build something or quickly change a road. But now we can do it with heart and focus, but make sure it is designed with communities, not on them. It's a whole different game changer. And West Yorkshire is doing some really amazing things when it comes to this, particularly when you look at all the different authorities. Everyone's working together, particularly Leeds and Bradford together. It's described anyone as a mega city, which is quite interesting because what happens in Bradford matters to Leeds and what happens in Leeds matters to Bradford. That is such a great way to collaborate. And people can learn from Bradford and what has already happened. And I am certain what I will work on, they will want to be part of as well.
Yeah.
And we say this on this podcast all the time and on our panel that we had earlier, that culture is that social infrastructure. It's the emotional infrastructure. It's what makes us human. And you know, we have to bring back joy. And like you said, we live in very dark times now. The world is a very dark place. We're in a loneliness epidemic. Can you imagine? Like, you know, like the UK is quite a densely populated country and we're in a loneliness epidemic. So culture will save us.
Well, it already has. So there's been, unfortunately, world wars, the pandemic. So the consistent thing there that has brought people together and give us like solace, up in even the pandemic, is art and culture. That didn't disappear. We had people performing for the troops. We all then, when we couldn't go out, we were reading and writing and drawing. This is the stuff that binds us and keeps us human. And technology is evolving so fast around us. So when all that's done, what are we all going to be doing? Hopefully, it'll be enjoying theatre, music, food, you know, and the definition of culture is whatever we want it to be now. It doesn't have to be just a small focus thing. So I include that personally. Sport, food, music, visual art, it's whatever we want it to be. So it is really important, and I don't believe I should be, and I'm not going to be trying to make a case for culture anymore. Like even my parents can't be like, David, you're not sure you want to go and get a proper job?
Proper job.
I think I'm doing all right.
So is there a tension with positioning culture and a cultural program as an economic development tool?
What do you think?
One thing, as far as buildings are concerned, we talk about the competition between culture and infrastructure, etc. Buildings are great, and you can design amazing things now, okay? But if they lack soul, and that soul comes from people, and that soul comes from community, that soul comes from diversity. Yes, it has art as a part of that, but it's also about conversation. And why are people feeling isolated and lonely? Because you don't feel that there's a safe place for conversations. Okay? So around these buildings and infrastructures, you need to have time for conversation where people can come together. We were talking about pubs this morning on our panels, and people need to go there just to feel part of a wider community. Whatever your outlet is, whether it's a nightclub, whether it's a pub, whether it's a business, whether it's a park run, for example, and the popularity of those events and sport that's come together. But I do believe what we did for infrastructure when it came to climate resilience, green spaces, 15, 20 years ago, public realm within the built environment was non-existent.
It's true.
Okay, the green infrastructure and recycling of water and the rest of it, okay, and carbon neutral. I think we're at that point again with culture. That is our moment now where culture needs to be designed into rather than an afterthought. Okay, because if not, places like this where we are here now, the Royal Armouries and where we are here at the docks, after this was built and people left and they had to reinvent this space for a cultural, for hospitality, for co-working, and you have to continually reinvent. It's not going to be one rule for everybody, and one thing isn't going to work. Box Park may work well in Shoreditch and in Wembley, but taking that elsewhere will be a completely different challenge. Exactly the same with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. It works, and it works in Edinburgh. Wimbledon with Henman Hill and Strawberries and Cream works there. So I think we've got to be absolutely very clear that we've got to look at the identity of the place, and one size doesn't fit all. Bradford is unique. And the cultural programme for Bradford has got to be unique to Bradford. And it's got to come from bottom up. It's got to be grassroots. It's got to be inclusive. And it's got to be sustainable. And it's got to be here for the long term. And if it doesn't work, as David says, we'll go back to the drawing board and we start again. So I think it's a real opportunity, and I think it's a great time for how we weave culture in to how people now want to live their lives.
But going to that point of the tension, when money comes into play, as you alluded to earlier, the game changes. So is there a risk of, us losing the way when money comes, when lots of money comes involved and lots of money gets invested into culture?
David has already said that culture in Bradford is number one. And we can look at our return on investment of that £50 million we spent on what we got. And actually, if I look at the £50 million invested and what we got as a return, and I'm sure there's research being taken out and other Leeds University, if we look at the ROI, actually, it's not a bad investment really, is it? Probably more than the 7% yield that your rental properties might get. So how do we evaluate return on investment? And I think that's going to be the challenge going forward. And I think that is how we should monitor spend on culture as well, which we already do within the sector. Because, these organisations that fund arts organisations, and especially the background that David's come from, they're not just going to throw money at something which is not giving them a return on investment. So we are actually economically quite with it as well. Yeah. I think we are strategic in our approach, and it's not just culture, that fluffy thing for the sake of culture. I think it is more than that.
It is a part of big engine of the economy. So the tension is less, to answer your question, direct than it's ever been, because it does prove itself. Without, we could have lots of apartments around here without anything to go to. It's not going to be the most desirable thing, but actually when you start interjecting cultural programs, actually you can help the nighttime economy. Particularly in Bradford, I'm really keen, how do we start reactivating that moment, working with businesses? So if I'm putting on a festival that's in the evening, yes, there's an investment in that, but the ripple effect of what we'll do with that, we've got to give hotels confidence and bars and restaurants. This is what it can do, and it can change the fortunes of some businesses. Hospitality is in the floor again, which is annoying because it feels like it's culture and hospitality leisure for some reason for the last 20 years is the ones that feels disposable, but it's the thing that connects us because it's food and it's retail. So I think some of the things that we can do to make it work harder as in a cultural program is to make sure we really join up the dots and work with each other. But the return on investment in cultural investment, it's already proven. The interim report for City of Culture Year is online. The full economic impact will be there by the end of the year. So that was about this amount of GBA to the economy and jobs created. And it just, just to reassure everyone, it's not because it's not being done. You have to validate this stuff. Otherwise I just chuck a number out and I could be making it up. So the partners that are involved with the culture company will spend a lot of time. They are much cleverer than I am on that. But that will come out at the end of the year. But I guarantee the investment has been worth it. Even if you take even just the kind of headline figure that the £10 million investment attracted £41 million, done. I'm part of the legacy. This new role exists because of that.
Yes.
And many more people. So I think there is a tension there. I think it's less than it probably was, if I'm being like just blunt about it. I think some of us I'm stopping justifying it because it clearly works. But I do think the one thing that I always say is you can use different analogies for this, but I don't want to be having a conversation about that or that. It doesn't have to be either or. They're so intrinsic with each other. And it's this idea again about what you think culture is and what it means to you. I want really pretty streets with nice flowers and places to sit. For me, that's a moment of community, which is culture. But equally, I want a really fabulous show at some point. So I think the tension is there. But even just being here for the last 3 days, it sounds really corny, but I feel there's like a movement that everybody's finally waking up that they have to double down on the investment for culture. A, because you get more out of it, people are happier, they then want environments to live in, they are spending more money on building and buying and consuming. That's kind of how it works. But there's been like 4 UK City of Cultures now. London, Derry, depending where you're from, don't shout at me. And you say, I know that you said Hull, Coventry and here. It's been done 4 times. It's changed those places 4 times, even just like financially, economically. It's hard work to keep it up, don't get me wrong. But the tension's less than it was the first time someone did it.
Just also a point we touched on this morning, and I'd like to throw it in here as well, is why do we talk down culture? Why does it have to be not a decent return for investment? Why do we need to prove ourselves? Why do we have to sit here and talk about our sector? Actually, it needs to be much higher on the agenda. It needs to be around the table in government. Those departments of DEFRA, DCMS and others, they need to be joining up and looking at cases like Bradford and Liverpool and Hull and Coventry and say, well, actually, that was a great way to invest. And it's about where we invest our money and energy. So actually, I think we do need to start talking it up more. I don't think we do it enough. And we're always having to fight for our little bit and our corner, making sure we safeguard that funding, like you just said. Why? Why shouldn't it be? Well, actually, this is the money ring fence for culture, full stop. And we have to be positive about it. So I think we need to talk it up.
And there's some really good examples of like, it had a financial shock in the positive way of 2. I'll give you 2 examples. Don't shoot me, I'm not a Swiftie, but Taylor Swift coming to the UK had an impact on the economy so substantial, people were worried about it. Like, it was ridiculous, hundreds of millions of pounds. I remember coming to Liverpool, equally Eurovision. So the investment, what that is, it transforms a place, but also that money transforms into confidence. Creative industries is the 3rd biggest economy in the United Kingdom. It's worth about £120 billion. So I think we've made the case for it. But I think, the thing that I always remember to talk about is everything we spend and do, whether you're in a council or you're getting money from the Arts Council or Heritage Lottery, it's public money. So I agree, I don't want to keep talking about it, but I do expect to be scrutinised and judged, and we spend it properly. I'm not going to chuck it away. If we're going to invest in something, I want a great return, and that is whether you feel better, you feel heard and seen, and someone like you is leading the company, or you had a great time with your family, you went out and had a great meal that you could afford. I think it's all of those other things together. And Bradford was a great example of that. It was a great year, and hopefully everyone's still feeling buzzing and excited about it. And there's more to come. It won't be at the scale that it was, because no one can sustain another year like that. I don't think the team would be able to cope. But now it's that confidence to take strategic investments and invite people in. You know, it's about us working together as a kind of district, but it's about inviting the world in. You know, why can't maybe we have Taylor Swift in at some point?
Yeah.
Why not? Why not?
But yeah, you know, I mean, like, and it's also our collective memories. You mentioned Taylor Swift, you mentioned Eurovision, both things that I went to.
Yeah, right.
And the moment you said it, it's triggered that emotion, and I've gone back into my head.
Experience.
And I'm feeling that
Is
joy.
there a film? I'm not plugging
There's
it
a
for free.
film.
Disney film.
Yeah, of her journey.
And they're
of the-
talking about core memories.
Yeah.
That is what culture can do.
Yes,
I was
yes.
talking to an architect earlier on who worked on the mirror pool in Bradford, who took his grandchild, let them run through it, and he said, oh, she was screaming. And I thought he was like, no, she was ecstatic. And I was like, you've created a core memory she's going to remember forever.
Exactly.
She'll remember that when she's 20, 30, 40.
Exactly.
That's what culture can do for us.
And it's those core memories. And now every time I watch Eurovision in the following years, I always remember my time in Liverpool.
Sorry,
and
back,
that will
isn't
stay.
it?
that will stay with me, and it's a part of our collective memories. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
It's intangible value.
Yeah.
Like, we can sit and talk about spreadsheets and ROIs and yields and all of that.
Yeah.
But how do you put a price on creating a core memory that someone will take and carry on with them for the rest of their lives?
I think it's also important to understand that culture is about the sitting in the park and enjoying the flowers. It is about the taste of a meal together and the sharing. And I also feel it's really important, and we had this conversation on our panel this morning, how we connect culture and hospitality and tourism together, because it's the sum of the parts. And that in a sector in itself, if you actually join the three up together, and then heritage, don't forget Bradford's got very strong cultural heritage and built heritage, it's massive. It's absolutely massive. And I think that in itself is a formidable industry that we should take seriously. But it is about joining up the other elements of that as well.
All right, final thoughts. So we had an amazing year, City of Culture. How do you stop that momentum from stalling? And what's already carrying forward into regeneration?
Don't point at me. So first of all, legacy, it's about a collective effort. No single person needs to be losing sleep over this. I would say a lot of it, first of all, the enthusiasm, and I hope everyone's as confident as I probably hope everybody felt nearer the end of last year, because we're going to need it. We have to work harder, because less attention is going to be on us, less money. But I think what we can expect is moments of surprise and delight. There's going to be challenge, because we shouldn't just be expecting everything to be, we should be challenging what people think about us, the stories we tell, but also responsible kind of investments around our community and making more work here and exporting it to the world. I've already said, I believe it's around civic infrastructure. So how do we make our physical assets and buildings fit for the future? We don't need to be back like we were 35 years ago, where an artist is working 19 jobs and doing art on the side. So how can we help to really invest at all parts of the creative ecology, as I call it? I think we've got a great opportunity with our young people, really tap into what they want, bring great partners to the table about whether it's skills, jobs, training, exploration. There are lots of independent organisations that also need looking after. This is about us working together to look after each other in order so we're here in 10 years' time.
Yes.
So I think all of those kind of obvious, connective things, but also I think it's about not losing the opportunity to keep talking about Bradford outside of Bradford. The shift has changed, whether you agree or it has. The media coverage has been insane, and we are ranking where people want to live higher than we've ever been before. But how do we keep that momentum? So that is about looking outward to our regions and our nations and internationally. What do we have in common creatively, culturally, and hopefully, whilst everyone's needs a bit of recovery, I wasn't doing it last year, so I've got the energy, so I'm going to keep pushing hard and making sure we keep pace. You're only as good as the last thing that you did. I'm afraid that's just how it works. So how do I now maximise some of those opportunities for Bradford? But it's about retaining that pride. How do we, work with businesses, the nighttime economy, get better infrastructure? We've got great opportunities like the Brit School, North. Insane opportunities that people will be fighting over. And I'm sure everyone's jealous that they're not getting the Brit School, right? So how do we also work towards those bigger pieces that we know we need for the next 10 or 20 or 30 years? I talk about, we're doing the generational change now. We're not doing the 1 year of culture. So even just the planning of it, I can't just think about what we're doing next year. I should be able to tell you what we're doing in 2030 and 2040 and 50. But it's there. Lots of people are passionate. I've had thousands of emails already about, I want to do this. And now it's about how do we do it in a sustainable way with the right investment, but also making it connected. And I think that's always a difficult thing when there's so much going on. How do we make sure people in all areas find out about it, can hear about it? We can't just rely on you'll find it on the internet. There's so much crap on there. The algorithm's against you to find the thing you want. So how do we connect with people and go, do you know what, this is for you, it might be in a different area, but please come and join and take a risk. You trusted the Year of Culture. They did some wacky stuff last year. You had a great time there. You created a core memory. So take a chance and come and see this. But equally, I expect people also to go out into the district. So how do we cross-pollinate the other way around? So lots to look forward to. It's just the beginning. Plans are underway. But hopefully you can feel my energy. I'm not kind of a sloth in this kind of world. We need to go big or we need to go home is what I always say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure even the listeners are, can feel your energy.
Yeah, this is what I'm like all the time.
Final thoughts, Zulfi.
Look, this has been a journey. 2025 has helped Bradford to rebrand itself. Okay? It's not a reinvention, it's a rebrand. We are still Bradford. We have still got an economy. We still have a population. We are still the 5th largest city in the country. The largest population, young population. So them things have been happening for a while. The infrastructure plans have been there for a long time. If you have a look at the place now, city centre, the infrastructure in public realm, the £100 million being spent on that has been an 8-12 year journey. So City of Culture has helped to reignite the passion in Bradford for Bradford. It's helped to rebrand. We've got a beautiful new brand. And that's what it's done. But Bradford's journey has been there now and has been a journey which has been organic. And the Bradford people have been on this journey for some time now. So I think we can't let go of that as well. And what we're doing now is we're handing the baton over to a new generation who are going to take us, hopefully, in a slightly different direction. But let's not forget the infrastructure that we're building on and the giants on whose shoulders we have climbed on.
What a beautiful thought to end on. All that's left for me to do is thank you for talking place with me, and I will look forward with much enthusiasm to everything that's coming out from Bradford.
And thank you
so much for having us.
Thank you. And thank you for Talk Bradford.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to join the conversation on social media with the hashtag #TalkingPlace. I would also love for you to leave our podcast a review and subscribe to all our podcasts and YouTube channels so you don't miss an episode. There's so much more to explore when it comes to creating good places, and I'm excited to do a deep dive into other topics with you in our next episode. I'm Tanisha Raffiuddin, and it's been my pleasure to be your podcast host. Thank you for listening. See you again next time, where we'll continue talking place. Talk soon.